books that I've read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She's the author of the book Website Wealth, and she is best-selling author too. No other than Miss Philippa Game. Sorry. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Philippa. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yes, hi Daniel. It's good to be here. I'm a web strategist, digital marketing kind of person, and this book is for anybody who wants to know if their website is really working for them. So what I do is help you figure out what's working, what's not working, where you might have even unseen, hitherto unknown opportunities for new products, services, or target markets, and where you're potentially losing money with your website.
Miss Philippa Games, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world and hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. Website Wealth is a proactive title. How do you define wealth in the context, and why is it more valuable than traditional traffic reach metrics?
So that's a great question. And to me, website wealth means more than the revenue. Obviously, any business is trying to make money. That's why we're all here. But you also want other, maybe less tangible things, like you want the respect and the trust of your visitors. You want to make the case that you can really do what you say you do. You want people to feel good about having a business relationship with you. And your website can actually convey all of these things. You want to convey your authority and your knowledge and that kind of stuff as well. So to me, wealth is money, and it's also all those other pieces that you just have: stature, trust, credibility, and revenue.
Miss Philippa, what do you think the factors that this book become bestseller on Amazon?
Well, the book is designed for people who have a business, have a web presence, and where the website plays some role in the business, which honestly for most of us is true, because even if you don't sell directly on your website, people will go there to check out who you are, find out more about you, and so on. And so your site is really important from that perspective. And so I wrote the book because I also know that the way to find out what's going on is to look at your analytics. And I know that if I say that, a lot of people here are just going to go, oh no, this is going to get boring really quickly, glaze over and leave. I do a lot of speaking, and I know that if you show a load of charts and graphs, that's what's going to happen, and people find it overwhelming, and it's absolutely understandable, because it is. And there's a huge amount of data and numbers, and where on earth do you start? And so this book is for people who feel like that, to say, but there are things that you really need to think about, even if you don't do your own analytics. You need to know how to talk to somebody like me, who can look at your numbers and tell you what's going on. And there are some things that you need to understand about your business and what you're trying to do with it, because I don't know that unless you can tell me that and describe it to me. And so this book is about how to think about your website from a business strategy point of view, and what kinds of things you really need to know about what's going on, which isn't, as you said, how many visitors did you get last week, and where was it more than the week before, because that's really not helpful information, unless you know if they were the right visitors for your business, and did they do the things you wanted them to do, and did they, I mean, if you are selling, did they buy things, did they watch your videos, did they see your content, did they engage with you, did they share stuff, whatever you want them to do, are they doing it? So are they the right visitors, are they enjoying their experience on your site, and are they fulfilling your outcomes? And you really need to understand, therefore, what your outcomes are and what you want to happen. So there's a lot to think about without having to get stuck in all the weeds of the data and the charts. And again, that's really what the book is about. It's in total English. There's no charts or graphs in any part of this book. Lots and lots of stories and examples to help people sort of think about, okay, so this is what's happening. What could this be happening on my site?
Congratulations for being a bestseller author, a best-selling author, Miss Philippa. Keep up the good work and looking forward for more and more best-selling books to come. What's the biggest misconception business leaders have about web analytics that prevents them from unlocking real value?
Whoa. I think I don't know that there's a misconception as much as just the sort of because they can be so overwhelming, a sort of unwillingness to really grapple with it, get it done, get it on there. Um, because there are things that you can tell with your analytics that there's just no other way that you could know. I can give you a very simple example. These days, we have a lot of web pages that are quite long because we're designing more for mobile, and people, prefer to sort of swipe up than to click to go to different pages.
Yes.
But as you get that longer content, you're really depending on people to do that scrolling. And what that means is that if they don't scroll as far as you want them to, they're potentially going to miss out on seeing some of your most valuable content, or your what we call calls to action, your requests for them to do something that you want them to do. And with analytics, we can implement a way to figure out how far down the page visitors typically scroll. And that way we can tell which of our content isn't being seen, which of our critical content isn't being seen, so that we can do something about that, either move it further back up or repeat the calls to action. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But this is the kind of stuff that you can't possibly know unless you dive into the data. And meanwhile, you're potentially losing a lot of revenue and a lot of interaction.
Interesting data, Miss Philippa. Can you argue analytics should drive boardroom decisions? So, can you share an example where company transform its strategy based purely on website insights?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that you can do, and I mean, this is maybe a bit more advanced, but I have said, I do say that you can identify, for example, opportunities for new products or services. So if you sell, or if you have a lot of content on your site, you should have a site search engine so people can find things, whether that's items that you're selling, or where you're talking about a particular topic that you're an expert in. And as you look at those searches, you'll find out what people are actually expecting from you. And sometimes, and I've got stories in the book about where we've actually done this, that does suggest new products or services or ideas, because you can, they'll come up with an idea maybe for an information product or even a physical product, which you hadn't thought of making, but which is it within your area of expertise. So, I have stories like that. Also, you can look at new markets. Um, for example, where if you geographically only serve a certain area, but you notice a lot of people still coming to your website from other areas, is there anything else that you can do to serve those visitors, maybe with um, uh, gift cards, or other kinds of things? They might be looking for things for people who live in your area. So just really understanding what's going on, who's coming, what they're looking for, can really inform your business strategy.
Miss Philippa, how should leaders structure collaboration between marketing, IT, and finance teams to turn analytics into actionable business outcomes?
That's a great question, and I actually have some discussion in my book about that, because politics can really creep in, and I have absolutely seen examples where one team doesn't talk to the other team. Um, I've got a story in my book, in fact, about where the IT department owned essentially the analytics and wouldn't allow the marketing department to see the analytics for the website. And that was just crazy, because obviously the marketing department have different questions. The IT team is responsible for making sure that the website functions correctly and loads quickly and so on. But the marketing people are the people driving traffic to the site, and they need to know it's getting the right kind of visitors, and so on, and that the content is engaging them and so on. And so to not allow marketing to look at the data is absolutely crazy, because they have some very different questions to ask of that data. So and it's amazing to me that we're still looking at these issues, but we absolutely are. And in terms of the finance, and other areas of the business, this isn't just about marketing. Because especially if you have an e-commerce site, these days we have predictive analytics that looks at what might happen based on the trends that we can see so far, and you can use that information to for manufacturing, for logistics, for supply chain operational kind of um, planning based on predicted demand, for different products, different areas, and so on. So there's implications for this across the company. And so it's important that everybody has access to the data that's going to help them do their piece better.
Very well said, Miss Philippa. Empowering answer. Truly, you are a best-selling author. What your advice for leaders who lack technical expertise but need to credibly challenge the analytic team's findings?
When you say challenge, so the analytics team should, if they're good, not just be reporting out numbers, but should be making recommendations. Right. So you should be getting to the point. The only reason you want to measure anything in the first place is not just to report it, but to say, what do we want to do about this? Is this going well, or is this something that we really want to try to improve? And if we want to try to improve it, we have to figure out how we can do that. And that might be a business decision about a different product, a different service, a different pricing, whatever it might be. Or it might be a website design decision. And there's lots of different ramifications. Um, but what you should be doing is using the metrics to say, how are we going to go forward? What do we need to do differently? How are we going to test whether that's the right idea? Because that's also important. I mean, you don't know that you've got the right answer until you test it. um, so when you say challenging the analytics team, I mean, yes, obviously you want to know why they're saying what they're saying, um, and then you want to test. If you agree with them, and you want to put effort into trying to change something to make it work better, you want to test whether or not the idea is going to do that. And it obviously should be a collaborative effort, hopefully, as opposed to an argument. um, and if the analytics team can come up with good data to support what they're recommending, then clearly that should be worth discussing.
Indeed, indeed. Can you walk us through your value chain framework for connecting raw data to tangible business value like revenue or loyalty?
One of the interesting things that you can do with an analytics program like Google Analytics 4, for example, um, is is to assign a notional value to an action that a visitor takes. So you're obviously measuring revenue, and if you've got an e-commerce site or you're selling anything, you're recording the actual monetary revenue that you make. But for example, if somebody downloads a PDF specification sheet, or an order form, or an RFP form, or something like that, that means they're somewhat interested. They're thinking about doing business with you. And in more sophisticated programs, and again with Google Ads, you can do this. You can assign a nominal value to that action. And what that allows you to do is to then dig deeper and say, okay, of all the visitors who did this, which were the most useful, for example, marketing channels. So you can look at it and say, okay, visitors who came to us because we put something in our email newsletter generated X% of the download requests, as opposed to visitors from, I don't know, a social media posting, for example. And so you can really, if you've got that notional value, so you can say, the email visitors were worth such and such, and the social visitors worth such and such, then you can compare them, and so that you can start putting value on different marketing activities or different types of visitors. And even because that doesn't represent actual money, but it still allows you to make really good judgments about what's going on and what you should do more of.
Miss Philippa, as an author and digital marketing strategies and analytic insights, what are your short term and long term goals?
For me personally,
Personally, yes.
you know, one of the reasons that I wrote this book is because I honestly believe that without intelligent use of analytics, if you have a website, you're just flying blind. You honestly have no idea what's really going on with your site, whether the time and money and effort that you put into it is paying off, where you're losing opportunities and not just for money, but as I said, for trust and authority and so on. Um, and so I know a lot of business owners and decision makers still find the whole concept of analytics kind of either intimidating or boring or both, but it's really important and it can be fun and it can be creative. And so again, the book is really aimed at being in English and showing you what's possible to do with good use of analytics. And I read a report recently, I think it was Nielsen that put it out, that said they surveyed marketers globally, and the report said that 75% of marketers feel like they're making good use of their analytics. Now, one question about that is obviously they're marking their own homework, as we say. So, do they really know? Is that really true? Like, if an experienced analyst looks at it, would they say yes, they're making good use of their analytics? But more importantly, 75%, that means that 25% of global marketers, even now, are saying that they're not using analytics, either not using it at all or not using it effectively. And as I said, I believe very strongly that that means that they're flying blind with everything that they've done with the site, everything they're putting into it. And this book, I really believe, is important to try to encourage them to change that because I think they're really missing out.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Philippa, and looking forward for more and more best-selling books to come. What would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to write their own books too?
Want to write your own book.
Yes.
I was incredibly lucky. I mean, I this book is what we call in the US a hybrid. In other words, I worked with a company that does editing and publishing and so on. And my editor was an amazing guy called Vince Warnock, who actually encouraged me to write the book. He's a well-known marketer. He's actually based in Australia. I was talking to him about appearing on his podcast, and he just got really interested and said, "Hey, you should write a book about this." And he's been an amazing support and also obviously done all the technical stuff that needs to get done that I really don't know much about. And so, having a support team and not having to do it all yourself has been really, really helpful, motivating, and also, having somebody who knows how the book business works if you're not really established in that is really helpful. So if you're somebody who's really got a message and and you can write, then write your book and get help getting it out there.
Yes, and thank you for your advice, Miss Philippa, and hoping our listeners or watching right now will follow your advice. With rising privacy regulations, how can business maintain wealth generation while respecting user consent?
So yeah, I know this is a big question. Um, the analytics programs, I mean, Google Analytics, for example, is still the most used analytics program around. And it has more privacy controls now than it used to, which is why they brought out the new version, Google Analytics 4. Analytics is anonymous if it's done properly and in accordance with the rules. But it is important, as we're talking about, to see what the trends are, what the patterns of visitor behavior is on your site. You have to, as a business owner, understand that your analytics will never be complete because people do withhold consent from being tracked and so on. And so what you shouldn't do is consider that your analytics is like a tool of record. It's like the numbers that you're looking at are not accurate. It's not like this is exactly how many people came to your site. So it's showing you trends and patterns and so on. But that in and of itself can be incredibly useful. So I think sometimes we get a bit overboard about privacy. As a marketer, obviously, this is really helpful information. So I think hopefully we can find a good way through respecting people's anonymity and still getting some good data about what's working with our websites.
Again, very well said, Miss Philippa. Very well said. If listeners do one thing differently after reading your book, what should it be?
Well, pretty simple. If you have a website and you don't have any analytics on it, get that done and start using it. If you do have analytics already and you haven't looked at them for a while, start using them intelligently, because it will really help you, as I said, to grow your business, make your business more successful, make that website really sing for you and generate that wealth. So, find somebody that you enjoy working with, and get to grips with your analytics.
Yes, like Miss Philippa, grab the book and for sure it will teach you how to do it. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and book 101 review in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in fourth season, and Movie 101 review, as well as my Music 101 in fourth season as well. Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Philippa, who's the ideal reader of website wealth beyond business leaders, and why might they be surprised by its value?
You know, like I said, well, we've said business leaders, anybody with a website that plays a role in their business. I'm also hoping that people who are in the analytics business, or the SEO business, might find this book helpful to share with their clients and their bosses and their managers, because then hopefully their clients and their bosses and their managers will understand better some of the challenges that analytics people face in terms of getting good data and how to use it. They'll also understand better how to talk to their analyst, and I'm hoping that that will foster better working relationships. And sometimes bosses and clients ask us things that really aren't honestly reasonable, or they have expectations because they don't understand what analytics can and can't do. So I'm really hoping that perhaps this book will help to bridge that gap as well.
Miss Philippa Games, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, and hoping for more and more and more knowledgeable books to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Yes, thank you so much. I would, please do go, and my book is currently available on Amazon. Hopefully, in a few weeks, it will be available in some bookstores as well. So enjoy.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Philippa Games, because if you support her, as I said, more and more and more empowering and best selling books to come. So, Miss Philippa, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.